Alright, everyone. Hello. It has been donkeys. You know that old British term? It's been so long it's like donkey's years. Haven't seen you in donkeys. Let me go to my YouTube channel to read your guys' comments. I know there's a lot of you here, so I may not get to every comment, but just be aware that I do read them. I just don't read them all aloud. Usually I read the ones that are like questions aloud. But yeah, I do read them. Let me just go ahead and mute this. And then skip. Alright, here we go. Hello, Ozzy. How's it going? Weather lately has been a bit rainy, which is good because we've had a pretty dry December and January, which is really strange. Like, usually December, January, those are like some of our rainiest months. But it's been really dry, and that's strange because, you know, in Southern California, for instance, it will get dry during December and January. It's typically a rainier season for Southern California. But it's normal for it to be dry. But here in Oregon, it should be like rainy, just constant rain. But we're finally getting that rain. The temperatures, which have been hovering around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, have been dropping occasionally to just above 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So not enough for snow, but it is pretty darn cold and rainy. Yeah, so hello, everybody. Hello, King of Battleships, Cat, Ozzy. Oh, gosh, we got so many people here. Wild Smiley. Oh my goodness. Oh, hello, Jeff. How's it going? I got some really big news for you guys. Well, it's big news for me, at least. But I got some big news for you guys today. And we'll kind of talk about that. So, yeah, hello, everybody. Sorry, just going through the comments, just reading everybody's greetings and stuff like that. Nice. Jamie says it's funny that Titanic has red funnels. Titanic doesn't have red funnels. It had kind of like oh, are you talking about my model? It's actually like a really deep orange, actually. It's not red. But this model, I made it in 2012 before I really knew anything about... Well, I still don't know anything about Titanic. I really don't. But I know a bit more now than I used to. And I know now that the funnels were not orange. I was going by... What was it? Was it this one? Not this one, but I had artwork of Titanic back in 2012 when I made this model, and it was just the colors were really intense on that picture. I think obviously the picture was incorrect, but the colors showed like a really bright cherry red fouling paint, and then it showed like a deep orange, like a fruit orange kind of orange for the funnels. And then it showed the forward mast being the same kind of orange. And I learned that was not at all like the case. The forward mast was really more of a brown. The funnels were a very specific color of buff. And then, even though I didn't do the cherry red anti-fouling paint, I made it really dark burgundy because I just thought it looked better. But I learned the real color of the fouling paint. So the model is very, very inaccurate. And it will take a lot of work to restore it because it is very broken too. There are lifeboats that are just ready to fall right off of the model. The masts are snapped. I've moved this model so many times with all the places I've lived over the years. And so yeah, the model is just in dire need of repair. But let's go ahead and start pre-warming this thing. Set that there. One of the reasons I haven't done a tea time lately is I'm really like so poor. I couldn't afford to get like these shortbreads or any of the hobnobs. This stuff is really cheap in the UK, but here in the US, it's expensive for what it is. And I can't drive. So, I mean, I used to drive, but I don't drive anymore. And so it's like I can't go places like we have shops occasionally that I'm told about, where there's like British snacks and things that are sold at like a little British shop or something like that. I can't go to them. So I'm stuck just having to get what I can get off Amazon, and that can be expensive. Just top that off. And then, yeah, so I really didn't have anything. I don't even, like, I'm making Earl Grey tea, and I prefer to have my Earl Grey tea with some milk. Thing is, I'm lactose intolerant, so the only, like, fake milk that I can actually drink, and I think it's okay, is oat milk. And the one brand of oat milk that I really like, the one that I think is like actually palatable for me, they stopped selling it in all the local stores recently. Like literally 2025 stopped selling it whatsoever. And so we've been scouring the grocery stores looking for it, can't find it. There's just no one selling it. They're selling all the other types that same company makes, but it's not even like the same. It's like oat milk creamers and stuff like that. So it's like extra concentrated for like your coffee and stuff like that. It's just weird. So anyway, yeah, so that's part of the reason why I haven't done any tea times lately, is because I really just couldn't afford it, and I didn't have the stuff to do it, and it'd just be weird to have me sitting here have tea and not have anything really prepared for it. So yeah, but also I've just been really busy trying to figure out what kind of content to make. I have all kinds of ideas, but the problem is that sometimes like the viewers will only watch certain kinds of content, and I need to keep the channel going. So it's just kind of been like, okay, but I have some ideas for some things that I think will make people really happy, and I'll be working on that over the course of this month, releasing at least 2 of those ideas, I think, in a video format. So like I'm thinking about doing, so first of all, I'm going to be doing a video about the Queen Mary. I know, big surprise, right? But I'm going to wait till towards the end of the month to do that, because I want to do a non-Queen Mary video first. And but the Queen Mary video will be a lot like a documentary, so it's going to be like something like the stuff you've signed up on this channel to watch. But the other thing, which will be non-Queen Mary, I don't want to give away too much, because I don't want like some other YouTuber who's watching to be like, oh, that's a good idea, I think I'll do that first. Like, I don't want to do that. So but there will be a non-Queen Mary video. It could be something based around New Orleans, like a history video, like an actual documentary type video, or it'll be some other city. Because I've got the same idea, but I'm like, oh, that could work for New Orleans or this other city, and I'm like, I don't know. I can obviously do both. The question is which to do first. So I don't know. Maybe you can decide. Do you want a documentary style video about New Orleans first, or a documentary style video about San Francisco first? Because those are like 2 cities I really love. There's just a lot of history to them. Or if you're like, you know what, that doesn't sound interesting at all, let me know, because that will actually help me to decide whether or not to do that. But anyway, that's pre-warming. I gotta halfway empty this too. Bring that up to temperature. These old, what do you call it, bone china, they can shatter if you just pour straight hot boiling water in them, so you gotta bring up the temperature gradually. Let's see here. Let me make sure my chat is working, because I feel like it hasn't updated. Ah, there we go. Well, it's funny. He says, I always thought it was the lighting of the room that made the Titanic that color. Yeah, I wish, but no, it's very inaccurate. I'd say the most accurate thing about this Titanic is probably the white, gold, and black of the hull, and then my dad and I both worked together on the color of the pine decking. So that is an accurate pine decking color. I remember doing that correctly, but a lot of stuff on that Titanic is inaccurate. And the railing that came with the Titanic in the kit was really oversized. It was made of plastic, so they can only make it so small before it breaks when you handle it. So I want to replace all the railing with they have a special stamped brass metal railing for this scale, and I've been wanting to buy that. I say for a long time that I've been wanting to refurbish this model, but it would take a long time, and it takes a lot of money, and money is just something I really don't have, so it's always been on my to-do list, but I just don't have it. It's just like people who ask me about my model trains in my office. I've been working so hard on this channel to keep it on track, because it's been really foundering the past couple of months, and so I've been trying to work hard to keep this channel on track, and I haven't had time for the model trains, and I need to buy more supplies to even work on the trains anyway, so it's been hectic, I'll tell you that much. Alright, let's see here. Dino says, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much, Dino. Let's see here. Jamie says, I know a lot about Titanic, Alex. Awesome. Mark says there's Olympic on the footage. Yes, Olympic is on the footage, because at one point it was a Cunard White Star liner. So at one point it was owned by both companies. I think, just briefly, honestly, I think it was just like a year or so before they sent it to the scrapyard. So, but it was at one point a Cunard White Star liner. So, and the video footage is only of Cunard liners. Mark says, I love SFO. Yeah, me too, honestly. It's a really, the city has its problems, as does any big city, but it's got an interesting history, and the history is what I'm interested in. I made that sound like a Dr. Seuss line for some reason. Let's see. Kat says, by the way, Queen Mary has her movie theater open. They just show the short clips about the history of the ship there. Yes, that much I know. I don't think many people go in there to watch it, though. That's the funny thing. Okay, so I think this is ready for the next step, which is fully empty it. And then fully fill it. Time is 1:18, so 1:22. I gotta make this correctly because I don't have any milk to fix my mistakes, so I'm gonna be drinking it as is, essentially. There we go. Doesn't want to fit perfectly, but that's okay. Ozzy says, you can say the Queen Mary survived the fires around LA. I mean, yes, you can, but the fires never came anywhere near the Queen Mary. The Queen Mary was at least 10 miles away, if not much further. I don't know the full distance. I think it's much more than 10 miles from the Queen Mary to the fires. It's like 15 or something like that. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you could say the Queen Mary survived the fires, but at the same time, it's like the fires were so far away. They were on the other side of the county. So it was just like, you know, there was no way the fires could get to the Queen Mary. Moonzer says, what brand of Earl Grey do you drink? I drink Twinings. That's the brand. So, once the tea is done brewing, I'll talk about my big idea. Because I talk about my big idea now, well, not big idea, but the big news now, I'll get lost in it, and then I'll forget to take the tea out of the teapot. So, good afternoon, Tim. Sarah says, both cities are super interesting. Cool. Okay, well then, that gives me some confidence to do a video on both, at least. And if those videos are popular, I'll do one on, like, every major city that I think is interesting. There's certain cities where I'm like, I don't think that's interesting. But I think that would be an idea for a good thing for big cities. Ocean Bleed says, would have to see Nolan's documentary or Nave, but you know, I think I understand the idea. You'd like to see a New Orleans documentary. Yes, absolutely. John Hill says, visited the Queen Mary a few months ago and took the Steam and Steel tour. Can confirm the boiler rooms are still closed. The tour guide said it is an issue with the plumbing leaking and creating a bad smell. The tour guide says that, but I don't believe that to be true. I mean, I have no confirmation until I can get down there and see it myself. I wouldn't be able to really say with any certainty, but I don't believe that to be true. I think it's really more of an issue that the tour route has been interrupted by the construction. You see, before the ship reopened, they had to raise the height of the watertight bulkheads because there were openings that were cut into them before to allow the tour route through it. And so they had to raise those openings. And I believe by doing that, it basically severed, you know, being able to get from one room to the other in one or two of those areas. And so I think the real reason is that they haven't rebuilt the walkways to fit that change. And so, yeah, I think that's the real reason. I could be wrong, though, but I'm pretty sure. But tour guides, they'll, you know, generally speaking, I mean, maybe not all tour guides, but generally speaking, a tour guide will tell you something that is different from the truth because the truth may be more embarrassing. So, you know, especially like when I worked at Disney, people would ask all the time, like, oh, I see It's a Small World is closed. Do you know what's wrong with it? And, of course, I would know. It's like, oh, some kid fell out of it, you know, and he took a swim in the water. You know, but we can't tell them that because then they'll be like, well, don't you have, like, safety railings and blah, 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 you know, so you can't tell them that. You know, so we would say, oh, well, you know, we'd be like, oh, it's just, you know, something routine or, you know, the system needs to be reset or something like that. Or if you really want to get deep into the Disney-ness of it, we would say something like, oh, you know, Mickey is, you know, touring it real quick to make sure it's, you know, up to par with our standards. I don't know, something. I was never good at that part. But yeah, we were always told never to tell people the real reason for the closure of something, because often the real reason was something more embarrassing and more complex that people really just shouldn't know. So I have a feeling that it's not because of leaking plumbing. That makes it sound like something that's easily fixable. Like, oh, we'll just, you know, tighten up the screws that keep the plumbing parts together and, you know, whatnot. They make it sound easy, but I think it's much more complex, which is like, oh, we have to rebuild parts of the tour route because there's walls now in those areas. So, yeah. I think that's what's going on. But I don't know for certain. I'll just admit that right here and now. Um, uh, curly, curly two, I think is how you say it. Is the Queen Mary in danger from the fires? No, no. I was saying just a minute ago that the Queen Mary is located at least 10 to 15 miles away. There's no way the fires could get there. I mean, it would have to be like an issue of biblical proportions for the fire to reach the Queen Mary. And the fire's not even going in that direction, so I don't think so. I'm going to refill this with hot water because that cup was not warm enough, and it'll just cool down the tea real fast once I pour it in there. So let's see. Cat says might be a whole 40 miles. That far, really? Well, I know it would be at least 40 miles from Long Beach to Altadena, where the other fire is, the Eaton fire, is at least 40 miles. But I don't know that the Palisades fire is quite that far. I mean, I would like say maximum 30. Well, then again, I just probably have to admit to myself that I just don't know that area that well. Maybe it is 40 miles. But yeah, I mean, yeah, to agree with everybody else here, the Queen Mary and Long Beach is far, far away from those fires. Yeah, I mean, there's even like a forest between like Santa Monica and Long Beach. So like the fire would have to not only burn through all of Santa Monica, but then it would have to burn through the forest and then continue coming down and burning up, San Pedro to get to Long Beach. So it would take a lot of destruction for it to get down to Long Beach. Let's see. Moonzer, I agree. The models on the starboard promenade. For those that don't know, there's ship models on the starboard promenade of Queen Mary, and the thing is that they're exposed to direct sunlight every day because the models are right up against the promenade windows. And the thing about the windows is that they're not covered in any kind of like UVA or UVB like repelling material. Like they sell like plastic that you can put on windows that is perfectly transparent, but it blocks UV rays from damaging stuff with the sunlight, like, what am I trying to say? It prevents things from sun bleaching, essentially. They don't have that on the Queen Mary anywhere, to my understanding. Anywhere on the ship. And so anything that is exposed directly to the sunlight on the ship will start to darken or will start to lighten with sun bleaching. So things that will darken, like, okay, for instance, if you go on promenade deck into the second class stairway entry, there's a stairway there that goes down to like main deck and further down. That entry there, the wood is really dark, like dark like burnt toast. And I've seen a lot of people see that area and they're like, oh my gosh, what a like horrible color of for this area. And it's like, well, it didn't used to be that way. The wood used to be gold, but the sun would darken the varnish on the wood, and so the varnish is really dark and stuff. And so they would need to completely like use special solvents to remove all that varnish. and put a new layer of varnish, and then protect the windows with that plastic I was telling you about, just to prevent that from happening again. But then in other areas, you got like the models on promenade deck that get sun bleached because the sun rays come in and just whiten all the material. So Moonzer was saying that the models should be moved indoors. I agree, the models should be moved indoors because otherwise they're just in danger of being sun bleached. Alright, so Linda says, yes, people that don't live in or visited the LA Basin area don't know how huge the area is. It is absolutely massive. I mean, from my old house in Orange County, it would have taken about an hour to get to the Queen Mary from where I lived. And then from the Queen Mary to get to, like, let's say the Getty Museum, which the Getty is located in Brentwood, there was a fire right near the Getty Museum. That was another hour from Queen Mary to the Getty. And so, like, the Queen Mary is an hour away from all those fires if you're traveling on the freeway. So, the Queen Mary is safe from the fires. And then, just because I'm an engineering nerd, I'm not trying to flex or anything like that for you people who use those terms. But the Queen Mary is also mostly made of steel. There's very little on the outside that would actually ignite and burn. And even then, if something on the outside of the ship ignited and burned, I don't believe it would spread to the indoor areas, particularly because the indoor areas are just very well protected. I mean, even in the 1930s, the ship was very fire resistant. I think one of the only reasons why the Queen Elizabeth burned so badly was because all of Elizabeth's fire protection systems were disabled while they were converting her to a university. So I think that's the only reason why the Queen Elizabeth burned so badly. But Queen Mary, I don't think would burn, even if the fires came right up next to the ship. I think the ship is just that resilient. So, I mean, knock on wood, So, I hope not. I hope that never happens to the Queen Mary. How many elements of the Titanic survive above water in the sister ships that had nearly identical interiors? I'm going to let someone else answer that question because I really don't know much about Titanic, honestly. Hello, Kevin. Dino says, is there any development going on in the area around the Queen Mary? Yes, I actually recently put out a Queen Mary update. So that was put out just a week or two ago. I forget how long ago. Like two weeks ago, I think. And so you can find that information on there. But yeah, they are preparing to build a new temporary amphitheater for like weekend concerts and stuff like that. We're also going to be demolishing the English Village, and then I believe, based off of just what I know, that the submarine sometime this year, probably even as far away as December of this year, that the submarine will be demolished and removed from the lagoon. So I think by Christmas of 2025, the area around the Queen Mary should look a lot neater and cleaner and nicer overall. So, which is something I've been hoping for years, because the area around the Queen Mary right now, to put it nicely, it's not very pleasant to look at. but they're trying. They're doing what they can to make it better. So, and the plans that they have, I think, will definitely work. All right, let's take a taste of this tea here, because I haven't had any yet. Very good. You know, Earl Grey is one of the few black teas that I will drink without milk. Because like I was saying at the beginning of the live stream, I don't have any milk or anything this time. So, but Earl Grey is one of the few teas I will drink without milk. Because it's so good. You know, you can do that. Alright. Move that spoon aside. And then let's have one of these Scottish shortbreads. Something else I've wanted to have with these tea times is my favorite cucumber sandwiches. But going to the grocery store and getting the ingredients for it in a few amount of days before doing the live stream, it's difficult to line that up. Outbacker, thank you so much for the donation. To answer your question, and I probably should talk about this a little bit, so Outbacker asks, is your voyage on the Queen Mary 2 in the foreseeable future? It's not. Because I don't earn that much money, and I was trying to save up for it. So along with the money that people donated, I was saving up an equal amount of money, so that way I could make it and go on the ship. Problem was that over the last 6 months, the channel views have been diving, and no matter what I put out, it's not helping. And this channel is my job. It's how I make money and all that. You know, it's how I keep a roof over my head. And so no matter what I do, it's just not working. Like, I put out that Queen Mary repair update. Those repair updates usually get more than 100,000 views. At least more than sometimes 200,000 views. This one only got 35,000, which is a lot, but it doesn't earn me enough money to save anything. I've been literally counting pennies lately, trying to just keep afloat, honestly. It's been that bad. And so any of the content I produce is not getting the views that it needs to sustain itself. There's something wrong with the channel, or me, that I'm just not producing content people want to watch in huge amounts like they used to. And so it's kind of been tough because I have to find out how to do that. So because of the fact that I've literally had no money, I've had to use up the money I've saved towards the trip. All of it. So now all I have is the money that people donated. I don't even have the ability to save up money for my part of the trip. So, I mean, I have nothing left at the end of the month. In fact, I'm negative at the end of every month now. That's how bad it is. I'm negative on money at the end of every month. And it's been driving me crazy. So, that's kind of the problem with this Queen Mary 2 trip, is that it's just not working out. And I went to New Orleans because everything lined up for it. It was like the stars aligned for that to happen. And I was able to afford it. And I also had help from people who donated specifically to the New Orleans trip. And the idea was that I'd produce a lot of New Orleans content that would generate a lot of interest on the channel and help me to save up for the Queen Mary 2 trip. But so far, the stuff I've produced about New Orleans, people haven't shown up to watch it. It's been some of the lowest views of anything I've ever produced on this channel, ever. I mean, even my first videos from 8 years ago had gotten more views than these New Orleans videos. So it was just a huge failure on that part. And so, yeah, the Queen Mary 2 trip is not even on the horizon at this point. It's just, I don't have anything. And I'm in fact, like, going into debt, just trying to keep everything going. So that's why, if you guys have heard me complain a lot about views on this channel, It's because I'm stressing out like you wouldn't even believe. And doing YouTube is really the only thing I can do because of my schizophrenia. So I used to be a chef. I used to have my own business. I was doing so well years ago, but as I get older, my schizophrenia gets worse and I can't quite do the same things I used to do. And so I know it doesn't seem like it by looking at me, but I have gone through so much in my life to try to keep myself together and in one piece and keep my sanity and you know, develop friendships and relationships with people, and you know, and to do the things that I want to do in life. But it has been very difficult. So yeah, so that's something I felt, you know, is important for everybody to know, because I know everybody's like, oh, when are you going on the Queen Mary 2 trip? And it's just like, it's as if, you know, some kind of divine intervention has come down and is like, you can't go on this trip yet, at least. So it's been kind of a bummer too, because it's one of my bucket list items, and I want to go while I'm still young, so that way I can enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm working right now 100% on this channel. That's why you haven't seen me work on my train channel. You haven't seen me work on my model railroad or any other channels I've talked about making, is because I'm focused right now on this channel and keeping it afloat. And I've got ideas for how I'll do that, but whether or not the people show up to watch the stuff is a whole other can of worms. Don't know. I try to stay in good spirits though. It doesn't help to panic or to get upset or anything like that. I have got to focus, and so that's kind of what I am working on, is, you know, trying to create a solution instead of panicking and being like, what's going on? You know. So, Wild Smiley, thank you so much for the donation. I wish you could post a pic here. I recently got an old souvenir Queen Mary teacup and saucer that was sold on board when she was in service. I love it. Oh, awesome. Is it one of the kind that, is it like a plain white kind, or is it the kind that has like the flowers on it? Or sometimes there's even ones that are like, there's ones that have a few flowers on it, and then there's ones that are full of flowers all over it. So those ones are super duper rare. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Looks like I got another donation. Oh, Dino, thank you so much. Tim Elliott says, I haven't seen your video show up in suggestions. This live stream is the first thing that showed up in a long time. Yeah, I think that's the other problem with the channel, is that YouTube just isn't promoting my content. And, you know, I talk to YouTube all the time. I'm like, hey, you know, this video didn't get the views, and people are telling me that they didn't get a notification, and they're not seeing it in their browse history, or not browse history, but when you open YouTube, there's like a bunch of videos that are recommended to you. It's not showing up in those either for some people. And they're like, oh, well, it's working fine. You know, so YouTube, they're not dedicated to helping me. They really aren't. Their whole response to all of this has just been, everything's fine on our part. And so I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, obviously, something I'm doing is affecting the channel. I'm making content people don't want to see, ultimately. That is my fault. I'll accept that amount of responsibility for it. But there is a certain amount where I'm like, okay, this could have gotten a lot more views. Like the recent Queen Mary update video. All my other update videos have like 100,000, 200,000 views. I'm like, how come this one didn't even come close to that? Like, it was a popular video. You could see on the graphs that when the video went up, there was a huge spike in views, and then it just flatlined after that. And I'm like, you know, there's a certain amount of this that's not my fault. it's something wrong with YouTube, and they're not really dedicated to fixing that. You know, I think if I had millions of viewers and I complained to YouTube, then YouTube would be like, oh yes sir, anything we can do to help you. But I don't even have 100,000 subscribers yet, you know, so they'd be like, oh well, who cares, you know. That's kind of YouTube's thing, is like they only want to help the really, really popular channels. So yeah, it's a battle. It's a battle. Mark says it's really hard to get 1,000 subscribers. It is. I remember when I got my first 1,000 subscribers, it took years. I'm not even kidding. I think my channel was at least 3 years old, and I had been producing content solidly for 3 years, I think, before I got 1,000 subscribers. Maybe more. When did I get 1,000 subscribers? ...2019, I think. Sometime early 2019. So yeah, I was around for 3 years. Yeah, it was just about 3 years before I got my first 1,000 subscribers. And then it grew really fast. And then over the pandemic, it grew very slowly. So I saw this like initial growth in 2019, 2020, and then it's just slowly flatlined, the growth of the channel, to the point now where it's like, it's difficult for me to get another 1,000 subscribers. Not as difficult as being a new channel, obviously, but yeah, it's, you know, I think the reason why that kind of stuff matters to me is because this is my job. This is what I do. I entertain people, and I love what I do, honestly. I've worked really hard. I'm not that old, but I've worked really hard my whole life. You know, I've done the jobs where I've mopped floors, cleaned up puke, I've cleaned bathrooms, I've scrubbed dishes, not after cleaning bathrooms, but I've scrubbed dishes, you know, and then I worked my way up to being a cook, to being a, you know, assistant chef, to being a full chef, to having my own business. I did everything. I worked from rags to well, not riches. I never became rich, but you know, but from the bottom up, I've worked really hard my whole life, and for a long time I thought cooking was going to be the thing I enjoyed most in life, but it turned out that I liked making history videos more. And so even now, even though I can produce a video and it might not get any views, I still enjoy doing it much more than I did cooking. You know, there's something satisfying about making a video and knowing that someone can learn something from it. It's like when I used to cook, it was like nothing I did really mattered. You know, it was like chefs were a dime a dozen, nobody really cared. And then if you had an idea for something, sometimes the customer just really, it wasn't their thing. They just didn't enjoy it, and they didn't understand it. And so it, you know, and that business was difficult. Although I will say that the business I had was a wonderful place. We had the most amazing, like, workers, employees. You know, we had the most amazing, what's the word? Customers. You know, we had just fantastic people. It was a wonderful place. I have no complaints about that whatsoever, because that was just amazing. So I wouldn't, what's the phrase? Take that back for anything, or give that up for anything. What's the phrase? I can't even talk today. What in the world? So yeah, you know, so now I'm doing YouTube, which earns me a lot less than I made as a chef. But I do it because I love to do it. I love it so much. And I feel more sociable now, you know. Before it was like I was always just stuck in a kitchen cooking and doing management and whatever. But now it's like I can do these live streams and I can talk to people. And I feel like me being able to talk to you guys through a live stream is a great way to reach people who probably don't get to talk to too many people throughout the day. Maybe there's people who are really busy and their job kind of isolates them from other people. And doing this YouTube thing helps people to kind of talk to each other and to at least interact, even if it's through a screen. You know, I think it's great. I love what I do here on YouTube. I just wish that it was a little easier. But, you know, yeah. So thank you so much, you guys, for your donations. I hope you know that people who donated in this chat today, that money is like going towards keeping my lights on and keeping a roof over my head. Because that's literally, I mean, I haven't even paid my electricity bill last month. It's going to have to wait till this month. So it's just been, it's been a wild ride. So, let's see. Doing another engine video on Monday, supposed to be near 50 degrees. Oh, wow. Nikki says, I enjoyed the videos of the Queen Mary very much. I live in California. Oh, nice. Oh, speaking of California, I should probably get to the big news I was telling you about. So, thanks so much to my cousin and other family who are in California. My cousin is going to be, what's the word? They've secured plane tickets for me and my dad to go down to California, and we'll be staying with my cousin, but I will be going to visit the Queen Mary for the first time in 5 years. More than 5 years by now, actually. So, I mean, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna go to the Queen Mary, the original Queen Mary in Long Beach. And I am unbelievably excited. I can't even tell you. I think I actually cried tears of joy. Because the last time I was on the ship, January 2020, was also the first time I fell in love with the ship. Now, I tell this story all the time. Please bear with me, because I know I repeat myself like crazy. But I'd visited the Queen Mary a few times in my life before that. The bug, I never caught the Queen Mary bug, you know. I was always like, oh, it's a cool ship, you know, and then I'd go home and then forget all about it, you know. But that last time, January 2020, I visited the ship, and it was in rough shape, I'll tell you that much. It was in really rough shape just before the pandemic. And the ship, it was almost like it called out to me, like it wanted help. And the only way I knew how to do that was with my YouTube channel. I'm like, okay, maybe I can shine a spotlight on this ship, which at the time felt very forgotten and very out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And I thought, well, I'll use my channel to kind of shine this spotlight on the ship and teach people teach newbies things about the ship that they probably never knew. I don't think my channel ever really set out to teach well-experienced historic researchers new things. I think that's probably one of the things that first got misunderstood about my channel, was there were people who really knew their Queen Mary stuff, and they came to my channel and they were like, this is kindergarten stuff, you know, and I told them, I'm like, this is really more for the people who have never even heard of the Queen Mary, and to try to show them what's so interesting about this ship. And so, yeah, so anyway, I fell in love with the ship that day, January 21st, 2020? I forget. I know it was a Saturday, that's for sure. And I was just like, oh man, I have to come back, I remember when we left that day, I told my friends, Chris and my friend Steve R, I told them, I'm like, you know, we have to come back soon. And so we were making plans to come back like in a month or two to the Queen Mary. But then the pandemic hit, and it was like everything was under lockdown, even me. And I know the Queen Mary was technically still open until March or May or something like that, but I couldn't return to it. And so And then during the pandemic, in May, I moved up here to I'm just outside of Portland, Oregon, so I'm not in the city. I'm kind of along the outskirts in a forested area, which is nice because I'm not near all the big hustling, bustling city. But I moved up here to Portland, Oregon, essentially, and I haven't been down to Southern California since. It's been 5 years. And I gotta say, the only thing I missed about Southern California, because I've never been a fan of California that much, but the only thing I really missed about Southern California was the Queen Mary. Not even Disneyland. I know this channel used to be all about Disneyland. That's what it started as. It was a Disneyland history channel. But Disneyland didn't even come to mind all these 5 years. My biggest focus was the Queen Mary and coming back to California to see it again. And now it's going to happen, and I'm so happy. And now I get to look at Queen Mary through a different lens, because last time I was at the Queen Mary, I knew virtually nothing about the ship. I was just wandering around going, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe this is here. And then, and now, I mean, I can tell you, I send my friend from LMG Vids, he's the one that films all the updates, so whenever you guys see updates and you see brand new footage of the ship and he's walking around, that's my friend from LMG Vids. And he doesn't know his way around the ship at all. So I'm there on a video call with him, telling him, okay, make a left here, make a right there, go down this way. Consider that the last time I was on that ship, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to get around. I didn't know anything. I would have gotten lost easily. I can walk the decks of the Queen Mary in my head, and I haven't even stepped foot on the ship since the first time I even really learned about it. And so that's how obsessed I am now. And so being able to see the ship again is just like, it's going to be fantastic. And seeing it through the lens of what I know now about it, after all the research I've done over the years and all the stuff that I've learned, now I get to go back and really enjoy it, So this is going to be fantastic. So I'm sure people have a lot of questions about me going to Southern California, and I'll try to answer a few. Let me just first see what people are saying. Nikki says, it's great news to hear that you're visiting the Queen Mary. Can't wait to see your video of the Queen Mary if you're taking one. I'm going to try to do that, yeah. I'm going to try to make a video about the Queen Mary when I go down there, or at least make a few. I'm going to try to make good use of the visit, essentially. And I plan to be there like all day. Let's see. By the way, thank you, Ken, for your donation. I don't know if I said thank you before, because I saw it, but I just want to say thank you, Ken. And then to, who was it here? I hope I pronounced your name right. Isai Juarez. Your videos help me when I'm depressed or overwhelmed too. Many blessings. Thank you so much. That's what this channel's about, to help people. Let's see, Kat says, make Steve Coloca open up the boiler rooms for your visit. I don't think I can. I don't think I have that kind of pull, honestly, with the management at Queen Mary. I wish I did. I wish I was like buddy with them, so I could be like, hey, why don't you show us around the ship or something? But I don't have that kind of pull. But let's see. I'm just gonna get to a few more things, and I'll talk about the visit. Barry says, I'm surprised you haven't done videos of the SS United States and our current situation in the future. Nice history video for YouTube. Shame the U.S. government didn't step in to save her. So, Barry, that's a good point that you bring up. The reason why I haven't done any videos about the SS United States, first of all, I know nothing about its history. I know the basics. I know that it went into service in 1952. I know that right from its maiden voyage, it captured the blue ribbon from the Queen Mary. I know that I don't even know when it went out of service, honestly. I know it happened in like 1971. I don't know when it went out of service. I know virtually nothing about the SS United States. I know that someone by the name of Gibbs designed it, and designed it completely fireproof. There are no organic materials aside from metal on the ship. It's all synthetic, or it was synthetic. I know that the ship in 1992 was completely, or was it 1993, completely stripped of its interiors because of the asbestos, and that's the reason why the ship is in such, or was in such dire straits, is because there was nothing left to preserve. And in fact, people ask me all the time, they say, well, how come they don't save the SS United States? What's to save? You know, like, I wish they could, but even I have to admit that as a, you know, when you look at it from a business standpoint, there is nothing positive about owning that ship. It would only cost you more money to do anything on that ship than you could do on land. You know, like, people say, oh, well, it's, you know, you could use the ship and build stuff inside of it. It's like, but it's not like building something on land. On land, you have building codes and things that tell you how tall something should be, how wide something should be, how far apart the studs should be spaced, all that kind of stuff. There's rules and regulations, but they help you to know. But on the SS United States, it's so antiquated, and the ship has shear. So anything you build is going to be very unique to that ship. You know, you can't even build the doorway a standard doorway size, because it has to have a certain slant to it to go with the shear. So it's, everything about the ship is so unique, and it would cost way more money to build on that ship than anything. And there's nothing left on it to save. It's got, I think, the only artifacts left on it that are of any kind of historic value is the engines. Or the, you know, I think there's boilers too, but that's about it. You know, so, you know, I can understand why no companies have really stepped up to do anything. It's because they're really, it's a lot of money, and there's nothing left on it to save. You know, so that's one of the reasons why I haven't done a video about it, is I don't know anything about it, and even then, I don't believe that my efforts would have saved the ship. I really don't. The Queen Mary was a different story. The Queen Mary could be saved because there was a lot of original stuff left. There were whole hotel rooms that just needed some fixing of the plumbing, some, you know, some straightening up, some cleaning, and it would have been ready to reopen. You know, there were some issues with having to create safety fixes, like the bilge pumps and stuff in the Queen Mary, but that stuff was easy fixes. You know, I knew that it could be done cheaper than what they were saying could be done, and in fact, it turned out I was right, because when they ended up doing those fixes on the Queen Mary, it ended up costing them less than what they originally thought it would cost. But with the SS United States, I really looked at it, I'm like, I don't see a way forward for this ship. I just can't. I mean, you would have to have a company who was really willing to part ways with their money for no apparent reason other than the nostalgia of owning the ship. Because there was no cash flow positive for restoring that ship. You know, so I was just like, I'm like, I don't know. And then people wanted it to be stored along the docks of Manhattan. The docks would have needed several $1 million of funding to transform them into what they wanted the docks to be, for the way that they wanted to position the ship. You know, so I couldn't see a way forward for the ship. But that wasn't the only thing that stopped me from making a video. Was the fact that just to make my first history video of the Queen Mary, it took me a year of solid, like, just diving deep into the history of the ship. And even when I made my first video, I had, you know, people who knew more than me coming to my video going, oh, you don't know anything, and you got this wrong, and you got that wrong, and, you know, and I knew that if I made any kind of video about the SS United States, I'd immediately have those people coming to my channel and going, oh, you got everything wrong, and you don't know what you're talking about, and how can you call yourself a historian? You know, so I just knew, I'm like, if I make a video about the SS United States, everybody's going to come after me because there's going to be mistakes because it's my first video about it. And after, you know, and it would take me a year just to really dive into the history and really understand it. So I will say this much. I was contacted by someone who said that they were from the SS United States Conservancy. And they said that they wanted me to make a video about the ship. And I really thought about it. I'm like, you know what? If they can do certain things to help me make this video, then I'll make the video, right? I told them, I said, supply me with a bullet point list of accurate information in a timeline format about the ship. Everything from its engineering and stuff like that, how things were made on it, all the way through to like the history of the ship, you know, from the maiden voyage to important events along the way, all the way till the scrapping, or not the scrapping, the retirement of the ship. I said, if you can supply me with that and it's accurate information, then I can use that to make a video. And then when I get those people who come by and go, oh, you don't know anything about the ship, you got everything wrong, I can just say, you know what, the Conservancy told me to say this. No response. So I emailed back like a week later. I'm like, hello, anybody there? No response. So I tried. That was my attempt. You know, if I had tried to research that information myself, it would have taken me a year. Because it's a lot of information. How do you go from zero to knowing enough to make a history video about it? You know, it will take forever. So, and there was things about the Queen Mary that I learned that you just couldn't pull from at least any of the books I had at the time. You know, you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And so with the SS United States, I knew that would be an issue too. That there were things about the ship that I couldn't know because I don't know about it. And I can't look for those things if I don't know that they exist. And so those are the kinds of things that I'm like, that's the stuff I need to know. And it will be much faster if someone can lay all that out for me. But they didn't respond, and then the ship was sold. So now there's nothing I can do. I think there's people who still think that something can be done. Oh, some billionaire can swoop in and save the ship. It's not going to happen because the ship was just sold to that county, that city, Okaloosa, I think it's called, in Florida. And I know that there's a movement right now. There's a bunch of people who are saying that they're going to swoop in and save the ship, that they're going to buy it. But Okaloosa County literally told the public, they're like, we bought the ship fair and square. We don't want to sell it. We want it, you know, sunken in our harbor or wherever it's at, along the coast. So even if this organization who's building up a coalition of millionaires to help save the ship, they're not going to be able to do it because Okaloosa does not want to get rid of the ship. They just bought it. They're like, you know what? We really want this ship. It's going to do wonders for our tourism and snorkeling and all that kind of stuff. They don't want to sell it. So I think now it's just too late, you know. So that's the deal with the SS United States and why I didn't make a video about it. It's not necessarily that I'm just like, oh, I don't want to. It's just I don't know anything about it, and I would have been starting from scratch, and it would have taken too long. So, yeah, that's why. And I just didn't believe it could be saved, honestly. I still don't think so. You know, like I said, any company that would buy that ship and then try to convert it, they'd have to be willing to just toss the money out the window, essentially, because there are certain things about it that just, you know, from a business standpoint, cost way more than doing it on land. And you just have to be willing to part ways with that money just because you love the ship. And I don't think there are very many companies that have that kind of passion. So, yeah. Let's see. Linda says, I believe your videos helped save the Queen Mary. Thank you for that. We want to travel to Long Beach and visit again and maybe stay the night. Not sure when that will happen, but we'll do it. Yeah, I wanted to stay, several nights on the Queen Mary, get a real feel for what it's like, but, that just never happened. I just don't have the money for it. But that is something that's on my bucket list, is staying a few nights on the Queen Mary. But I should talk about, a little bit about my visit to the Queen Mary that's happening soon. Okay, there's a few questions. I'll get to them in just a second. So there are a few people, a few viewers on my channel. I don't know if they're watching right now, but they have emailed me in the past and offered and said, "Hey Alex, if you ever make it down to the Queen Mary, let me know. I will buy you a coffee, or I'll buy you lunch, or I'll buy you dinner, or something." They just want to hang out. And I have to tell people right here and now that I'm not going to be telling people when I go to the Queen Mary. And the reason why is not because of them. Because over the last couple of years, I have had the crazy bad luck of having people on my channel who really want me to die. There have been people who have made some serious threats against my safety and my life. Just because I wrote a video title they didn't like, or because something in the script of a video could have been possibly construed as something negative towards the Queen Mary, or even people who just think that I'm using the Queen Mary to get popular. Which makes me laugh, because again, I've said this a million times, but if all I cared about was popularity, I wouldn't be making Queen Mary videos. I'd be making videos of me stuffing my face with pasta and screaming at people online. That's how you get the views. That's how you get the popularity. So, yeah, making Queen Mary videos is not a one-way ticket to popularity. It doesn't make me any more official. I mean, look at me. I don't work for the Queen Mary, and I know that. Making videos about the Queen Mary does not make me the most awesome historian that ever existed. It certainly doesn't. I mean, there are people who literally work for the Queen Mary whose job is to know the history of the ship, and I'm not one of those people. So it's not like I do what I do for the clicks. It's not that at all. I do it because I love to do it. But there are people who think that about me. And it's not just one person. So if you're the one person who's watching and you're like, "Hey, I never said that about you," there's multiple people. There are multiple people who have threatened me. And I don't want to meet those people in person. So I don't want to be walking around on the ship and then, they end up walking up to me and punching me in the face or something. I don't think they'll really kill me. I don't think so. But I do think that they could be very confrontational. Because that's happened before. Years ago, when I still did Disneyland content, there was a person who really despised me for some reason. That they just thought I was fake or something. And so they came to the park because I was on an all-day long live stream. I was live streaming for a full day. So they knew where I was. They knew I was at the park, and they knew that I'd probably still be live streaming by the time they got there. And they came to the park, and they immediately approached me and were just like, blah, 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 you are, fake and blah. I'm like, you don't know me. I'm like, how do you know I'm fake? I'm like, you don't know me. I mean, I think, if anything, the only thing about me that is fake is that I probably curse a lot more in real life than I do on this channel. I don't think on this channel I curse at all. But in real life, I do curse in certain times. I never take the Lord's name in vain. That much I'll tell you. I don't curse that way. But I do curse. And I think at times when I'm frustrated, I don't lose my temper, but I don't have the patience for certain things. I know my flaws. I know what my flaws are. And I'll tell you right now, the person you see on this camera is essentially the person that you meet in real life. You know, so I don't think there's really that much different about me in real life. So I don't believe I am a fake person. I don't put on any kind of personality to be on YouTube. Because I started my channel because I was frustrated with people who did put on fake personalities. You know, so yeah, but anyway, there are people who really can't wait to know where I am, so that way they can hurt me. And I'm like, I don't want that. And plus, even if they don't want to hurt me, there are people who would just like, I don't know, they would like SWAT call or something like that, you know, just something like that. I just don't want that, you know, so I can't tell people where I am, where I'll be, how long I'll be there. You'll just have to be surprised when it happens. So I do apologize for that. I know there's lots of people who are like, hey, you know, I'd love to meet you and, you know, buy you a cup of coffee or something, but I can't, you know, I can't tell those people when it will happen, so yeah. Gosh, and I just realized I probably shouldn't have even said anything because there's a person I was going to surprise with that information. And so I didn't want him to know. I don't think he's on the live stream right now, or else he probably would have said something like, what? But if I delete this live stream, or not delete, but if I make it private after the live stream is over, that's why. It's because there's someone I'm surprising when I get there, and I don't want them to know I'm coming, because it will ruin the surprise. So if I put the live stream in private afterwards, that's why. But, yeah. So, I just realized that that's like the reason why I haven't said anything until now, is because I wanted to surprise that person. But yeah. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that visit. So I didn't want people to feel like, oh, well, Alex thinks he's above everybody and doesn't even want to meet them to say hello. It's like, that's not it at all. It's just that, like, I don't feel safe anymore. That's how crazy things are getting, you know? Like, I don't even feel safe anymore being in public with, well, at least, oh, okay, when I'm, like, out grocery shopping or something, that's different. Like, you know, I feel pretty safe in public. But I don't feel safe letting people know ahead of time where exactly I will be. Like, you know, down to the last detail. Just because I don't know who's going to come up to me, you know? Like, I don't know anymore. So, that's why. Alright, now to answer some people's questions. I know some people asked me some stuff. Oh, Sarah, you got a QMI pin in the mail yesterday for donating. That was super surprise. Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it? So, you guys, the organization, QMI Restore the Queen, they're a real 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the restoration of the Queen Mary. And I used to work for them. I used to be a director of public relations. So I used to work for them. They're a real nonprofit, and you can donate towards the restoration of the Queen Mary on their website and stuff. So it's at qmi.care. At qmi.care. And you can put in a one-time donation, or you can do a ongoing donation kind of thing, and depending on how much money you donate, you might get like a little gift back. Like Sarah got a little pin, like a little lapel pin, and I think like there's like t-shirts and things you can get as well, just for donating. But that money does go into the restoration of the ship. Like I said, right, like their most recent donation was $20,000 towards the ship, and that went towards the restoration of the Unicorns in Battle artwork, which right now is undergoing that restoration. So honestly, Unicorns in Battle would not be undergoing restoration right now if it wasn't for the huge $20,000 donation that QMI put up for that. So, and they've already told me that they've got like numerous projects lined up next for things that they want to donate towards. And they've talked to the management and stuff like that. And so management's 100% on board with all these restorations. One of the things I was told that I was allowed to say, and you guys will love this, when the Queen Mary came to Long Beach in 1967, she was carrying on board 2 London double-decker buses. They were both, I think, 1952 models. They're old. They were old when they were on the ship, even. So the ship was carrying 2 London double-decker buses. They were briefly used in Long Beach for several years as shuttles to get people to and from downtown to the Queen Mary, and then they were just ran until they just gave up. You know, they were just completely just the vehicles were not usable afterwards. I don't know what happened to one of them, but the other is owned by QMI Restore the Queen. They own the other one. They nicknamed it Winston, which is pretty funny. So it's a real authentic 1952 London double-decker bus that they nicknamed Winston, and it's in very poor shape, very, very poor shape. You would almost think that it had undergone arson or something, but there are things about it that are still very original. It's got all its original seats with the original cushion. It's got like all the original like gadgets and things and interiors and stuff. The outside, the red color is so faded it's almost like bright purple, like lavender. But they've already talked to the city of Long Beach about this. They plan to restore the double-decker bus and use it once again as a shuttle to get from downtown to the Queen Mary. And the city is on board with this. The city wants to use their public transit shops and supplies to restore the bus, to make it functional again. So the city is even getting involved in this too. So that's something that your donations will go towards as well, is having the original London double-decker bus restored to be used as a shuttle to get people from downtown to the Queen Mary. So that's another really cool thing I was told that I could talk about. I was going to put it in my Queen Mary update video, but I forgot. I forgot to put it in that video. So yeah, that's a really exciting detail. But yeah, so any donations you give to QMI will go towards actual projects happening on the ship, especially the bus project as well. And so nobody told me to advertise that on my channel. I just felt like that's something that should be advertised, because finally, after all these years, there's a way to donate towards the Queen Mary. I think all you guys know that over the years you've wanted to donate to the ship, but you didn't know how, because there was no way to do it up until recently. So now there is. You can donate at QMI, and you can get little pins or shirts and things like that in return. And by the way, it's a tax refundable donation, so you get a certain amount back in your taxes for donating to the Queen Mary. Let's see. Darnu says, I miss the fedora. I still have the fedora. I used it when I went to New Orleans. So all my New Orleans vlogs, you see me wearing the fedora. So I still have it. Let's see here. Nikki says, I agree that they need to get rid of the submarine. Yes, they do. I mean, if the submarine had any historic value whatsoever, I would probably be championing for it to be saved. But there were multiple submarines just like it. I think there's at least still one that is in good enough shape. I think it's part of a museum exhibit. So it's not like, it's like the last of its kind or anything like that. And it has no historic value. It wasn't in any wars. It wasn't built really that long ago. It was built in like 1974 or something like that. So at most you could say it's 50 years old, but it's like vintage, but it's not antique. So, yeah, if I thought there was any historic value to that submarine, I'd say save it, but there isn't, and it's in such bad shape that there were marine engineer surveyors who suggested it gets disposed of instead of saved. They said it's so bad that, you might as well just dispose of it. So, yeah, I don't think it's salvageable. So, let's see. Ozzy says, "Is Chris the Cookie Man?" Chris is the Cookie Man, indeed. Cat says, "Too bad raccoons don't pay rent." I know that submarine is infested with raccoons. I saw last time I was on last time I visited the Queen Mary, there were so many raccoons coming out of that submarine. It was just unbelievable. And rats too. At nighttime you'd see rats crawling out of the submarine. And then during the daytime there were birds that just flew right into one of the open, I don't know what to call it. Is it a window? Because submarines don't have windows, but there is a glass window on the submarine, on the conning tower, and there were birds flying right into it. So, there's birds living on there too. Wild Sonic says, "Enjoying the stream while resting my head against my purring cat." Cats are great. I was just dog sitting my sister's dog the past 2 days. So you guys probably remember her. She was on one of my live streams. Her name is Freya, and she's a very large dog breed mix. What do you call it? Pit bull and some other mix. I forget what the other is, not timber wolf, but something like that. Anyway, she is the sweetest dog I've ever met, sweetest dog. And so I was babysitting her for 2 days straight, and I would have done a live stream or something and had her on the live stream, but she doesn't like when I'm on the computer. She doesn't like not being the center of attention. So she gets mad when I'm on the computer or something. So Joplin says, "That's great. Hopefully one day they'll also have light rail service from downtown to the Queen." I think so. They won't have light rail, but what the city does want is they want to build, what do you call those, the skyway gondolas. It's like a continuous chain of gondolas that it'll carry people from downtown to the Queen Mary, just a simple straight line. It's built by either Swiss or Swedish company. I don't remember, but it's a famous company. It's the same company that built the new skyway system at Walt Disney World, the most recent skyway system that takes people from one hotel to another. So it's the same company, and they want to build one that will go from downtown to the Queen Mary. It'll be a continuous moving chain of the gondolas. So the city is yeah, we really want to do that, but the ship needs to have some kind of attraction on it that will bring in enough people to make that skyway system worthwhile. Now, there is something to be said that they're building that amphitheater for doing concerts and stuff on weekends, because they want to do a lot more concerts near the Queen Mary, since those draw a lot of visitors. So that might be enough to bring in concert goers on weekends, but during the rest of the week, it's not enough to keep the thing going. So I think they want to wait until they either have a really popular attraction on the Queen Mary that draws in tons of people, or until they have the new entertainment district they want to build alongside the ship. Now, I know I've mentioned the entertainment district, and a lot of people think like, oh, well, nobody visits malls anymore, but it's not a mall. It's got dining, and it will have some shopping, but it'll be mostly an entertainment district, and that's what the city of Long Beach wants to build next to the Queen Mary. And entertainment districts are very popular. In fact, they're building one in Anaheim as we speak. It's called the OC Vibe. I know, it's a terrible name, isn't it? OC Vibe. Like, what in the world? But anyway, they're building one called the OC Vibe, and it's going to be huge, and it's just an entertainment district, complete with like a park or something like that. And the same thing is what they want to build in Long Beach for the Queen Mary, is an entertainment district with a park attached to it. And so, yeah, that's kind of the plan. Dino says, do you have any other interesting hats? I do, yes. Be right back. See if I have it here. It's my engineer's cap. So, yeah, I have my engineer's cap. I don't think I have any other interesting hats, honestly. I don't wear too many hats. But, let's see here. The sub always seemed out of place. Maybe sell it to someone for a dry land museum. Liminal, like I was saying, the submarine is in really bad shape. I mean, I'm not even kidding. It's in such bad shape they can't move it because they're afraid it'll just sink. Like so a submarine has two hulls, an outer hull and an inner hull. On that submarine, both of those hulls have corroded to like tissue paper. In fact, part of the inner hull has already breached, and there's some flooding in one of the compartments of the submarine. It's in such bad shape they don't want to tow it anywhere because they're just afraid it'll sink. So it's just in that bad of shape. They're also afraid that if they lift it out of the water with a crane, that well, first it'll take like 2 cranes to lift it out of the water, but they're afraid that if they do that, it'll just crunch and break apart. Because right now the only thing holding it together is the water itself. Just like well, not just like the Queen Mary, but a lot like the Queen Mary. People ask, why don't they put the Queen Mary permanently on dry land? Well, first of all, she's built to float in water, not to sit on dry land. But second of all, because she's so old that if she was on dry land any longer than, like, you know, a year, you would start to see her sagging. And in places she really shouldn't be sagging. Because right now, what's really keeping her in the shape she is the water itself. It's cradling every inch of the hull. And so the same thing for the submarine. The water's cradling the whole hull, keeping it in shape. But if you lift it out of the water, the engineers really are afraid that it'll just crunch and break apart as they remove it. So that's kind of the issue that they're dealing with. So I really don't think that they can sell it to anyone. I don't think, I don't even want to like get into the details of what they'd have to do just to save it. I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount of work that would go into trying to save it. So, yeah. Dyslexic Batnum says, I love that username, Dyslexic Batnum. I would love to ride that double-decker bus to the ship. I just looked it up. It looks sick. Yeah. It is a really cool thing. And I remember when, because I used to talk to Mary Rower, well, I still do, actually. But I would talk to Mary Rower. She's the head of QMI. And she would talk about the double-decker bus, and it... It really needs a refurbishment, but they just put new tires on it, she told me. And so I saw a picture of the new tires on the bus. I'm like, that's really cool. So, you know, it's already like one step closer to being a functioning bus again. But it looks amazing, and I think if it was restored, it would look so cool. You know, transporting people to and from. So that's pretty neat. Demon says, love it. Little goofy, little cool at the same time. Yeah, I usually wear this when I do my videos about the model trains and stuff like that in my other room. So I don't really wear this for like talking about ocean liners and stuff. But I really want to restart my old, you know, railroad channel and get back to working on the model train and stuff like that. Because I have another channel called Alex the Railroader, and in fact it's linked below in the description. But I'll admit, I just haven't had time to work on it because I've been so focused on this channel and trying to keep it going. Tim says, wish we had more double-decker buses here in the U.S. Liminal says, I live in downtown L.A. Wish we had streetcars. Yeah. I know that somewhere in Orange County, I think Santa Ana, they have built a streetcar line. I don't think it's open yet, but they built the whole line, and now they're just waiting to receive the vehicles, the light rail vehicles. So that'll be interesting. And, you know, some people believe that if it's very successful, then it'll probably convince LA to install light rail and stuff like that. It is really crazy to think that LA doesn't have light rail. No, it does have something. It has something because I remember years ago, like 10 or more years ago, I went to the LA Museum, the Museum of Natural History, you know, the one in LA, I forget what it's called. Not LACMA, is it? LA Conservancy, something like that, I don't know. But, yeah, so I went to the Natural History Museum there, and we took a streetcar system to get there. So they have something. Lumel says, we have the metro. Isn't that the same thing? Maybe I'm just confused. Simon says, hi Alex, great channel, thanks. Thank you, I'm glad you enjoy it. Let's see, my tea is completely cold now. I talk a lot on these live streams, so the tea just gets cold, but that's okay. I don't mind. It's been a while since I've done one of these tea time streams, and so I've been really wanting to do that for quite a while. These biscuits are chocolate-covered hobnobs. They're really good. If you get a chance to buy them, they are really delicious. Jordan says, I'm fairly positive the LA used to have the world's largest tram system around 100 years ago. Yes, the Pacific Electric red cars. Yeah, the red cars were... It was a huge system. And I don't know if it was the biggest because it went everywhere. Like, it wasn't on every street. I think it was biggest because it went the most distance. Like, for instance, one of the Pacific Electric red cars went from downtown all the way to where is it? To Santa Ana. Yeah. All the way down to Santa Ana, which is in Orange County, not even in LA County. So they went long distances. They also went to the beach. They went to Santa Monica, which is really far from downtown LA. So I think it was the biggest only because it went the furthest distance, but not because it was literally on every street. I would say, actually, if you want to talk about one that was like on a ton of streets everywhere, it would be the San Francisco streetcar system. That used to be, it was not all one system back then, but it was multiple systems, but they went on basically every major street in San Francisco. And it consisted of the cable cars, which is really, really important to rail fans like me, that the cable cars are not considered the same thing as the streetcars, because the cable cars are not self-powered. They require gripping a wire rope to get up and down the steepest hills of the city, whereas the streetcars cannot go up those hills. It's too steep. And the streetcars are self-powered. They have their own motors on board, and they mostly go around the flatter areas of ground. They can go up slight hills, but they can't go up the really steep hills that the cable cars can do. But between the cable cars and the streetcars of San Francisco, they had a really huge network that went down basically every major street in the city. And now today, the only thing that's really left is kind of like a slight hint of that. They still have some streetcars that go down Market Street and the Embarcadero, and then they have the cable cars, which go down 4 different streets: Mason, Powell, California, and what other street is that? Mason, Powell, California. I'm forgetting one. Well, there's 3 different lines, but there's 4 different streets. Maybe that's what I'm getting confused about. It's 3 lines, but 4 streets. Anyway, there's Mason line, Powell line, and California line. That's what you need to know. So, let's see here. Tim Elliott says, you need electric cup warmer. Yeah. Well, you know what's really cool is in the mornings I like to drink coffee, and what I really want is those electric coffee warming cups. You know, it's a cup, like a mug, and it keeps the coffee hot at the perfect temperature that you want. So that's something I really want, but it's like over $100, and I can't afford it. So but it would be a cool thing. But for the tea, I want to continue using the china, because this is original Queen Mary china, so it was used on the ship while it sailed the oceans. I mean, some British man with a big mustache probably sipped from this cup at one point. But, yeah. Let's see. People are talking about some company. I've never heard that company before. Wild Sonic says, it's sadly hilarious to me that so many Los Angelinos don't even know that their city has a subway. It's a car-centric city. That's why I love New York City so much more. Yeah, what's funny was when I went to that museum in Los Angeles, the History Museum, I had to get there. So I lived in Orange County. I had to get there by taking a train, like not a subway, not a light rail. It's an actual train. I think it's called. I think it was literally just called the Orange County Metro. Yeah. Orange County Metro. So I took the Orange County Metro all the way up to Union Station, and when I got to Union Station is when I realized that they had a subway, that LA has a subway. I didn't know that. I mean, I lived in Southern California my whole life. I've visited LA numerous times throughout my life. Never knew that it had a subway. And apparently that subway's been there for a very, very long time. so, so yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people who live in Los Angeles have no idea that there's a subway there. And I took that subway down Wilshire, I think. I mean, do I have that correctly? I went down Wilshire Boulevard to a certain extent, and then I had to. It got to the end of the line, and I had to go up to the surface level, and then take. They have a metro light rail type of deal going on, and I got on that to get all the way to the museum. So it literally took 3 modes of transportation just to get to the museum, which I think all in all took about 2 hours. Now, picture this. I lived just 1 hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes away from the museum. But to take public transit took about 2 to 3 hours. I think it was 3 hours in total, to be totally honest. But it took about 2 to 3 hours to get there on, the public transit system. Which should tell you right there and now, there is public transit in the U.S., but it is very sparse and unreliable. I mean, even where I live, there is technically a train nearby where I live that will take me into downtown Portland. But it only runs like once every 2 hours, and even then it's always late or something like that. Sometimes late, sometimes early. People complain that they miss it all the time. So it's just like the U.S. just wasn't designed after the 1960s for public transit because of our car-centric culture. And I can't even drive a car anymore. I used to be able to drive, but because of my schizophrenia, I can't drive anymore. I'm like a danger on the road or something. But yeah, so I would use public transit a lot more if it was more reliable. Back when I worked at Disneyland, I used public transit all the time. At one point I had a car. I would drive my car to work. But it was scary to drive my car to work because I remember I would get to work and I'd be like, wait a minute. How did I get here? Like, I remember getting in the car, but I don't remember driving up here. So I would literally have lapses in my memory of how I got to work. Which is really scary because it makes you wonder, like, did I run any red lights? Did I do something? Like, it's just absolutely crazy. But yeah, it's insane. Metrolink, yes. Bad Crumble says it's Metrolink. Yes, that's what it was. I used Metrolink to get to downtown LA. Tanner says, is the submarine stable? I read there was... So we're talking about the submarine next to the Queen Mary. Is the submarine stable? I read there was concerns about it sinking and damaging the Queen Mary. It looks in very bad shape. And December 2025 is far away. Well, I'm not saying that December 2025 is when they're going to remove it. I'm just saying that by December 2025, we should see it already gone, is what I'm just saying. So I'm essentially just saying that at the end of the year, it'll be gone. I'm pretty sure. I've been proven wrong before, but as for the stability of the submarine, no, it's not stable at all. In fact, it's a hazard right now, because remember how I said that, like, part of the hull is breached and there was a leak into one of the compartments inside the submarine. Well, I think they've got that compartment sealed off. But, which is why it hasn't completely sank right now. But, the submarine is tethered to the dock with mooring lines, but it is also tethered to the Queen Mary. I don't precisely know why. There are things like bumpers keeping it from coming too close to the dock. Is there? Maybe not. I don't think there is, actually. Wow. There's nothing preventing that submarine, aside from the ropes and tethers tied to the Queen Mary, that prevent the submarine from coming towards the dock. That's crazy to me. So there are tethers that are keeping it attached to the bow of the Queen Mary to prevent the submarine from coming too close to the dock, because where the submarine is, there's no there's no like dock right up against it. It's a gradual slope. So it goes from the sidewalk where people walk, and then there is a gradual slope that goes underwater at about a 45-degree angle. And that slope doesn't terminate until about halfway below the Queen Mary. Just about. So that means the entirety of the ground underneath the submarine is at a 45-degree angle. And the submarine, if it were to sink, it would cause huge damage to the dock and the Queen Mary, because it would pull on those lines. And the lines would probably snap, of course, but it might create dents or peel away some of the steel on Queen Mary's hull. Maybe not, I don't know. But then the submarine would hit the bottom and tumble down, because there's a slope underneath it. And it would tumble down and come to rest right underneath the bow of the Queen Mary. And the Queen Mary does float. She rises and falls with the tide. On a low tide, the Queen Mary's hull would come down like a knife onto the submarine and damage the hull of the Queen Mary, possibly, maybe, allowing water to come into the hull of the ship. There are still safety barriers. There are still closed up watertight compartments at the bow that would prevent a leak from flooding the interior of the ship, but it's still not damage that you want. Excuse me. That's the way I sneeze. Sounds like a cough. Just randomly had to sneeze. But yes, so what was I saying? So yeah, it would be very bad, and that's why the submarine needs to be removed, is because it's not stable at all. It could sink virtually any day now. It's kind of a miracle it hasn't sank yet. I don't like to say that, because I don't like it when people are alarmists, where they're like, oh, it's gonna sink, there's something here, I don't want to be like that. But if you've learned anything about me and about my channel, about how I try to dispel rumors of infinite doom all the time, if there's one thing that does raise alarms for me, it is that submarine, because it does pose an imminent threat to the ship. The city is well aware of that. They've been trying for the last 2 years to get the owner of the submarine to pay for its removal. The city essentially is like, look, we don't care how you get rid of it, just get rid of it. But they can't get a hold of the owners, because obviously the previous owner doesn't want it. They can't be reached. Apparently they give them phone calls, they don't answer the phone. They leave emails and stuff like that, and letters at their post box, and no one answers. They don't want it. So I believe now that the city essentially has given up on the whole let's try to get a hold of them thing, and now they're switching into plan B, which is to use their power of eminent domain to allow them to get rid of the submarine. Because in the United States, a city can't just be like, oh, we want that gone, poof, it's gone. They can't do that. In the United States, we have rules about like what government can do with private property. And so if a city wants to use its power of eminent domain, it has to at least observe other options first before they can just zap something out of existence. And so they've tried for 2 years now, and I think now that they're ready to use their power of eminent domain. So I don't know when the demolition of the submarine will happen. I have a feeling it will happen after the demolition of the English village. And here's the reason why. First of all, when the English village is demolished, it will be turned into additional parking space, because since they're building that temporary amphitheater on an already existing parking lot, they will need additional parking to make up for that. And yeah, so I think they need that additional parking, but then also to get rid of the submarine, they're going to need to section off a part of one of the parking lots to make room for the demolition area. It's just like when they got rid of a lot of the Queen Mary's lifeboats, they had sectioned off a part of a parking lot for destroying and removing the lifeboats. And so I think they're going to need the same thing for the submarine, except on a slightly larger scale, because it will be a much bigger task to get rid of a whole submarine. I mean, the submarine from photographs looks pretty small. You're like, oh, there's the giant Queen Mary, and there's this tiny little submarine. But in actuality, the submarine's like 300 feet long, and like, what, 35, 40 feet wide? It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So, the process of removing that submarine will be gargantuan. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they do it. But yeah, so I think the submarine they'll get rid of it after they demolish the English village, because they need that parking space that they're going to take up for the removal of the submarine. So, Liminal says, what museum was it in LA? It was the Natural History Museum. I don't. They have a name for it. I don't know what it's called. The Met? No. It was like LACMA or something. I don't know. It was the Natural History Museum. Whichever one has like stuffed animals and dinosaurs. That's it. That's the one that I went to. Oh, I also did visit the Science Museum. So it had like space and aeronautics stuff in it. And it was right next door to the Natural History Museum. Yeah, I forget. But yeah, whichever one is the Natural History Museum, whichever one is the museum with the science stuff, that's the one I went to. It's the big museum. It's like, I think, the biggest of those two kinds of museums in the entire LA County. Now, someone asked, Kat asked about the Brea Tar Pits. I've been to that one too. That one is further out on Wilshire Boulevard. I think it's the same street as the other museums, but it's just further out. But yeah, I've been to La Brea Tar Pits a few times in my life, actually. My dad's taken me twice in my life. I went once as a kid on a field trip, and then I went once more with a friend. So I've been to La Brea Tar Pits about 4 times in my life. It's interesting. It's really interesting. They're always finding new animals in those tar pits. So, and it's crazy too, because La Brea Tar Pits are located right in the middle of a city. And it's like weird, because you'll be walking along the sidewalk and tar will just come up from the cracks in the pavement in the middle of this bustling city. You know, so it just goes to show like how crazy that area is, because you don't expect it. You know, you see this big old city, and then all of a sudden there's the tar pits, and then you see like tar coming up from the cracks in the sidewalk. They're always having issues with tar coming up along the streets. Tanner says, appreciate your detailed answer. Hopefully they get rid of the submarine soon. God forbid if it did sink. It sounds like it would be a disaster. Like I said, I don't like raising alarm bells. It would be damaging to the ship. I don't think it would completely destroy, the Queen Mary. Like, it wouldn't like cause huge flooding on a huge scale. I think it would probably flood the first compartment. But the first compartment is really tiny, and it's right along the bow of the ship. So, and it's already sealed up from what I understand. So there's no way water could get through it. But But yeah, it would be... there is the potential there for some serious damage to the Queen Mary that would cost, quite a bit of money to fix. And the city's fully aware of how, how the submarine is threatening the ship. So it's... which is interesting to think of, because the last time the Queen Mary was threatened by a submarine was during World War II. Isn't that weird? Natural History Museum at Exposition Park. That sounds like it, yeah. Exposition Park is a... that sounds familiar. Oh, okay, that makes sense now, because... yeah, I remember exiting out of the tar pits now, and next door was LACMA, because they have all those street lamps right outside of it, all lined up. And you can take a picture with all the street lamps. So I remember being out there. I just didn't remember if that was after I visited the Natural History Museum or if that was after visiting the tar pits. But because I went to the tar pits on one day, I visited the Natural History Museum on a completely other day. So Lachlan says, "Hey Alex, how's the weather today?" Weather's really good. It's been a bit rainy, which is good for this area. We've been hoping for snow, but I don't think there's going to be any snow, unfortunately. Sometimes it gets cold enough for snow, but then the skies will clear up, and then we won't get any. So, I don't know. It is kind of sad. I think this will be the first year where we don't have any snow. Oh, see you later, Kevin. Air Eero says, "Who else feels like watching the Queen Mary repair update vids is like opening a present?" It is for me. Like, when I make those Queen Mary update videos, just going through all the footage and going, that looks different from last time, that looks different from last time. It's like, those puzzles you play where there's like a picture and it says, find the hat, find the squirrel, and you gotta like look and you gotta find all the hats and all the squirrels and all the polka dots and everything. I've always been really, really good at those. And so that's what it's like when I do one of the Queen Mary updates, because I tell my friend to just wander the ship and film everything he sees, because you never know if like something he passes by will be something that's changed since the last time. So like, for instance, one of the things was in the most recent update I talked about how the scuppers along the starboard side of the sun deck were recently cleaned, had their the rust abatement done, and then were repainted. If I hadn't noticed that when reviewing all the footage, it probably wouldn't have made it into the repair update. So I'm able to like look at all the footage and go, okay, that's different from last time. That's different from last time. Looks like this work has been done. One of the biggest surprises too was seeing all the davits sanded down, because for like the last 2 years, every time he went to the starboard side and I would look at those davits, I'm like, man, the paint is peeling so bad. I hope that they get around to painting those davits soon. And it's taken about 2 years, but they finally are getting around to those davits. Now, just to be fair, the reason why it's taken so long is because they now have their own dedicated team of painters. Before, in previous management, if they needed a huge paint project done, they would hire an outside contractor to do it. Now, on the ship, as part of their maintenance department, they have people set aside who just do painting. And they're like actual, like they're experienced painters. If there's a really huge project, like repainting the funnels, for instance, they'll contract that out, because that requires people who can, like, dangle off of the sides of buildings. That's kind of the work it requires. But if it's something that they can reach, then the people in their own maintenance department who handle painting will do all the painting. And they do sections of the ship at a time. So every time my friends go to the Queen Mary and they show me pictures, I can see a section of the ship that has just been repainted. And they're going through it section by section, and it's kind of at random order because, you know, it'd be kind of weird to walk along and the first quarter of the ship is all fresh repaint, but then the 3/4 of the rest of it are, old chipping paint. So they try to like go around and do different parts at a time, so that way the whole ship looks like it's getting attention, because it is. So it's interesting, and so now they've finally moved on to doing the starboard davits, and that whole area on starboard side, it looks brand new. The ship looks brand new on the starboard side. You would think, walking along the sun deck, that ship, had just finished construction, because just a simple coat of paint on all the little handrails, all the details, makes it look brand new. And so, it looks great. I don't think I've ever seen the ship look in such good condition since, because I've been going to the Queen Mary my whole life, and it's always looked rusty and, and in bad shape. So, right now, the way it's looking, and with them redoing all the decks, they redid the forward sun deck wraparound because all the teak was rotten, so they replaced it, and now it looks brand new. And so the ship is just looking so much better now than it used to look in the decades prior, So it's, I would say, the last 30 years at least, the ship hasn't looked this good in 30 years. So I'm so excited because there's just a lot going on the Queen Mary, and there's a lot more coming up, a lot more stuff that's going to be done. I talked about in my last update video, I talked about the redo of the rooms. And so the rooms, I think, I just wanted to make sure that people knew that the redo of the rooms doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get a full revamp or anything like that. I think really what people were trying to relay to me was that they're going to get furniture that is period appropriate, and they're going to decorate the rooms period appropriate, but they will still retain their 1936 appearance. It will still be very much Queen Mary as of 1936. And that's something that's kind of hard to put into words, because if you tell people, oh, it's just going to get some new chairs and a new table, well, that doesn't sound very exciting. But it is exciting, because the designers of the ship, when they decorated those second and third class rooms, sometimes the real decorative pieces of the room was the furniture. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like telling people, oh, it's going to get some new chairs and tables, doesn't sound exciting, but when they see what it will look like with the 1936 chairs and tables, it will look like a vintage room. It'll look really nice, and I think that's what I want to relay to people. Let's see here. Arrow says, would you ever consider doing a video on the Denver and Rio Grande number 223? I remember you saying you like narrow gauge railways. I don't remember what the 223 is. I'm not that familiar with the Denver and Rio Grande, but I do love narrow gauge railways. And but I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility. It's just that I don't know anything about it, and it would take a long time for me to research it. And, yeah, so it's not high on my priority list. Yeah. So Kat says, are you planning on spending a night aboard the Queen Mary? No, I can't, unfortunately. I don't have any money. Literally, the only reason why I'm even able to go down to California is because my cousin is supplying us with the plane tickets. She was just really nice. She was like, the family hasn't seen you guys, like me and my dad, they're like, the family hasn't seen you guys in 5 years. And our family is not really that used to being apart that long. 5 years is crazy. So she was like, the family really wants to see you guys. I want to see you guys, and of course she wants to help me out because she knows I want to be down there and, hang out with my friends and family. And so she was just really nice, and she was like, yeah, she's like, I'll get you guys your plane tickets and you can stay with me. And, and so that's how we're able to do it, because I have no money to do that. So, yeah, that was just really cool. Because if she hadn't offered to do that and let us stay at her house, I don't think I would have seen the Queen Mary for another couple of years at least. I just don't have that much money. So that was really cool. And I'm really excited because, well, first of all, my family, I've wanted to see them for a long time. There's family members I used to hang out with every week, and I haven't seen them in 5 years. And so I've had friends that I used to hang out with every week that I haven't seen in 5 years. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah. Alright, so... Lachlan says, yes, nice furniture can make a room look much nicer. And then Cat Kingdom says, hi Alex, do you ever think you would release merch? I do. I want to do merch. The problem is like figuring out what merch that people want. Because I used to do merch, actually, believe it or not. I used to sell mugs and t-shirts and sweaters and stuff like that, and used to be able to purchase it right here from the YouTube channel. There was like a little thing at the bottom of the videos where you could pick on the merch you wanted and you could select it and buy it. Problem is, I think I had one person buy merch. Just one person. to Sarah, who bought the sweater. Thank you so much. I don't see Sarah that often because she's very busy, but yeah, Sarah bought like a sweater. I think that was the one thing that anybody ever purchased. And so, yeah, the problem is that I don't have like a super huge famous channel. So I can't just like sell a backpack with my logo on it, because no one's going to want it. It's like, who's Alex the Historian? Like, no one cares, So I would need to sell merch that is related to things people really want. Something related to the Queen Mary, something related to history. And I had an idea. In fact, I bought supplies for it. I was going to do lithograph images. Because I've got kind of an artistic side of me. I can do artistic stuff. I've done all kinds of different artwork before. So I thought about doing these lithograph images. But then I thought, like, okay, there are a lot of people who would buy like greeting cards and what do you call it, bookmarks and stuff like that have the lithograph images on them. But then I'm like, other than paper products, what would people buy with these lithograph images on them? And that's kind of been the tough part, is like, what would they buy? And then I started making the lithograph images, and I realized it's something that takes practice. Because I thought, oh, I can just easily carve this thing out, and this will be perfect. And I was like carving it out, and it was never good enough. Every time I put the ink on it and I stamped it, there would be ink blotches everywhere. And there were parts that, like... So I was like, okay, I have to get it... I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I had to get like a thicker... what do you call it? I was using linoleum at first. That's what lithograph is. It's linoleum. But the problem was the linoleum was so thin that I couldn't put too many big gaps in the image, because then the linoleum would collapse when you stamp it down, and it would create those ink blotches that you don't want. And so now I'm like, okay, this is going to take a lot more practice than I thought, because I can't just carve out an image the way I want it to be. It has to be a certain way. And so it takes practice. And so I'm practicing. But I bought these even thicker rubber pieces they're not linoleum, they're thick rubber. And that way I can carve deeper into them, so that way they don't create those blotches. But I haven't carved into one of them yet, so we'll see how that goes. I almost took like a chunk of my finger off when I was doing it, because they're like little blades, right? And you carve into the stuff with the blades, and like you're trying to hold the linoleum in place while you're doing this. And I almost like completely took a chunk of my index finger off doing that with the sharp blade. I was like, oh geez. So oh, you guys, the stuff I do. But yeah, I think that will be the first step, is lithograph images on paper products and objects. Not really sure. Maybe jewelry boxes in general, that kind of stuff. Christian says, you probably had questions on this. Thank you for all you do. I can't believe they're not going to open Sir Winston's on Queen Mary. Have gone there since the 80s. It should be opened. They want to open it, believe me, they do, because Sir Winston's earns them a lot of money. But the problem with Sir Winston's is that since the Queen Mary had closed back in 2020, if you want to reopen a business, it has to go through city approvals, right? Like, it can't just continue to run the way it used to run. Now it's got to be, re-inspected, re-approved, and stuff like that. And so Sir Winston's was one of those places that could not be reapproved because it is not ADA compliant. So Sir Winston's was built at a time, Disney built it in like the late 80s, early 90s, just before the ADA Act went into place. ADA is Americans with Disabilities Act, and it is what governs disability access to all buildings and structures after a certain year. So the Sir Winston's was built before that, and because of that, Sir Winston's did not have to comply with ADA compliance necessarily, because it was kind of, the outdated word is grandfathered in to the system. The problem is that since it was closed and reopened under new management, it is not considered the same business. And in order to reopen, it's got to meet the standards for allowing disability access. And so right now, the way to make Sir Winston's accessible is first, starts on promenade deck. Build a wheelchair lift outside in the outer. So if you take promenade and you go all the way out to the back end of the ship, so when you're outside in the open sun, they would have to build a wheelchair lift out there that will take people up to sun deck, okay? And then from sun deck, they'd have to, I'm still wearing this hat, toss that aside. And then landed where I didn't want it to land. And then from sun deck, it would have to go up to Sir Winston's from the outside. And that's another wheelchair lift that they would have to install to make it happen. And so one wheelchair lift going up one level, I think at cheapest, is like $20,000, maybe $30,000. I think it's around $30,000 actually. Just going up one level is $30,000. But if you want a wheelchair lift that can take people 2 levels high, excuse me. Oh man, it's a lot, because technically Sir Winston's is located 2 levels above sun deck, and the only reason why is because sun deck is naturally 4 feet above, like the superstructure of sun deck is located 4 feet above the sun deck promenade. And so just going up higher than 1 level will require a different type of lift, which is even more expensive. I think that lift will cost closer to like $100,000. And so you're talking about $100,000 plus $30,000 is $130,000 just to build the lifts to get people into Sir Winston's. Probably even more. I think I'm even undervaluing the cost. Actually, it could be at least a $200,000-$300,000 project. Super expensive. Especially because it would have to go through all kinds of approvals and stuff, because it would be altering the exterior of a historic vessel. So it's tough. And so the management at Queen Mary know that. And in my last update video, I kind of talked about how instead of bringing back Sir Winston's, they should just return the Veranda Grill to being the premier restaurant. Because there's already an elevator that goes up to the Veranda Grill. And that elevator is, it's located slightly further forward, just maybe about like 20 feet forward from Veranda Grill. And, but it hasn't been used pretty much since the Queen Mary came to Long Beach. And it's been retired all this time. But it's still there. All the mechanisms and everything is still there. I mean, it would need a few parts replaced, I'm sure, but that's easy to do because there are multiple other elevators on the ship that are not in use that they could cannibalize the parts from to restore that elevator. As well as the fact that the original company that built the elevator is still around. The company that built that elevator was Otis, and Otis is still around. So Otis has been known to use their archives to help restore their older elevators, and so they can restore their own elevator. In fact, Otis recently restored the currently operating historic elevators inside the ship on Promenade Deck, or not Promenade Deck, I'm sorry, but on the port side forward, you know. It's like the only two historic elevators still used by visitors on the ship. So Otis went and restored those, so they can. I know that they can. And they can do it for much cheaper than building 2 lifts outside the ship. So, I mean, I would estimate that the cost of, I don't know for sure, but I believe that the cost of restoring the elevator might be half as much as installing 2 lifts to get up to that level. But I don't know for certain. So, and then some people have the idea that, oh, well, they could restore that lift, but then extend it an extra level to get up to Sir Winston's. That's not a bad idea. It's really not. It's just that I don't foresee that happening because it's so expensive. You know, like, it's really weird how stuff works, but have you ever, like, gone to a store and it says, oh, this item is 2 for $3, right? But then it says, like if you want to get, like, more than 2 for $3, it's going to cost, like, $10. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't even equate the same way. You're like, how can I get 2 for $3, but if I want to get 3, I have to pay $10? You know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever encountered that? Maybe it's been online, maybe it's been on Amazon or something, but like, if you've ever seen that before and you're like, what in the world? That's what happens with stuff with historic buildings and whatever. If you want to restore the elevator, let's say it costs $80,000, $100,000 to restore that elevator, right? And then you're like, but wait, I want to extend it another level. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, that's an additional $50,000. No, they'll be like, okay, that's an additional $300,000. You know, like, they're going to charge you unbelievably more just to do one extra level. And so that's kind of like how stuff like that works for some reason. So I just know that, because there's people that I'm like, that's a good idea, extend the elevator up one more level and get people into Sir Winston's. But I have a feeling that that's going to be one of those things where the whole project in total is going to cost like $500,000 or even $1 million just to add an additional level to that elevator. So That's kind of what I think. But I mean, then again, that's all speculative. I could be wrong. But Lachlan says, does your apartment still have the designer speckled beige and brown carpet? Yeah, it is a speckled beige and brown carpet. How did you know? Um, Christian says, the Queen Mary was not set for the requirements now. ADA. Really, they can go to another restaurant. I need to be open. That's job and income for the boat and for employees. I understand, but it's not something you can just demand and it'll happen. You know, like when I opened my business, a coffee shop, everything in that space that I rented was already built, right? Like, you'd think, like, okay, well, there's already a door. People can come in and out of that door. There's already, you know, a bathroom, a kitchen. There's a hood system already. And you'd think, like, okay, so all you got to do is install the furniture and, you know, and then the specific equipment you need, like the stove and whatever, to open this coffee shop and cafe. That's what we thought when we first saw the place. But the thing is that when you actually go into it, the city wants to, like, re-inspect it, and then they go inside in the building, and they came in, and they're like, oh, this doorway's not wide enough. And I'm like, what do you mean the doorway's not wide enough? This is how it was built. And they're like, yes, but it's not wide enough anymore. And I told them, like, but what are we supposed to do? Like, we'd have to install a whole new wall in this building to meet the requirements. And, you know, they're like, that's what you got to do. And then they came over to the hood system, and they're like, okay, well, this hood system is no longer up to standard. I'm like, but it's up to the standard that it was built to be. And they were like, yes, but that standard is no longer our standard. And so, you know, so they went around through the whole thing, and almost everything we thought would be a money saver was not. Everything needed to be redone. And so, I forget what we did about the door, actually. Because we didn't do anything with the door. What did we do? We did something, like, we got through a loophole or something about that door. Anyway, that's a different story for another day. But we managed to make our restaurant compliant in every way. But, you know, with Sir Winston's, you can't just go, oh, but the people in wheelchairs don't need to be there. Like, you can't just, you know, say that, and then the city will go, you're right, they don't need to be there. Like, that's not how it works. Like, the federal government would get in the way and be like, yeah, well, that's not how you open a business, you know. They would go in there and rip the place apart. And so the thing is like, you have to comply with that kind of stuff. And if you really think about it, like, I understand completely that, you know, the ship was not built for people in wheelchairs. I totally get it. And I think people in wheelchairs understand that too. But the thing is like, if you're going to open a new business, and that, by the way, that restaurant did not exist. Sir Winston's did not exist when the Queen Mary was sailing. It didn't. It was an entirely new space that they built in 1989 or 80 or 90 even. Entirely new space that they built. So it's like, just to get into Sir Winston's, it's like, well, that's not fair because that's not even an original feature of the ship. They just added that in, you know. So it's like, you've got the moral issue of like, well, it's not an original feature of the ship, so can't we update it to make it so it's accessible, you know? But the other thing too is just that, you know, just because you don't like how something is doesn't mean that we don't have to comply with it. It's like we do, you know. But like I said, I think most people using wheelchairs, most people with disabilities that can't climb stairs, for instance, I think they would understand. You know, they'd be like, oh, well, you know what, it's not built for that, and we can't go up there. I understand that. But you know, building code is building code. That's just how it is. And it's the same thing when I built my cafe. It was just like everything, all the codes and everything we had to comply with. It was just like, what? It's like you'd think, like, the space was built this way. Can't we just use it the way it was built? And it's like, no, you can't. All right, let's see here. Bad Crumble says, really cool you're working on the lino cuts. It's fun, but yes, be careful. Yeah. You think it's feasible to reinstall whatever's left of the dock equipment in the stern section / poop deck of the Queen Mary after Disney removed it in the late 80s? To reinstall, you'd have to build it all from scratch, I think, because the person that... I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But, like, some of the equipment was thrown away. Some of it was saved and purchased by somebody, a collector. Not all of it, but he did purchase, like, 1 or 2 things. And I don't believe that there is any way around it. You'd have to rebuild it from scratch. And I don't think anybody at the Queen Mary wants that, honestly. It might be historically accurate, but it prevents them from using that area for things that they want to use it for. Like, right now it can be used for events. Like, people can get married on the poop deck of the ship. They have the lights up and everything for it, and it's a nice big open area. And as much as I love historic accuracy, there is a certain part of me that sees it from the business side, and I'm like, you know what? The equipment's already been removed from the poop deck. Let's leave it removed, because we could really use that space to earn money for the ship. So I see it from the ship's angle. The thing I don't like is when they had that gazebo up on the top sun deck area where people could get married. That gazebo just really did not fit the ship at all. It didn't look like anything the ship would ever have on it. And it was just very weird. And I hope they never rebuild anything like that again up in that area. Like, something different, maybe, you know. Maybe something temporary that could be put up, you know. But nothing permanent. That was just weird. But, yeah. So, whoa. Peter, what in the world? Peter says, hi, Alex. Here's a little help for you and your dad to visit the Queen Mary on your trip to California. Oh, my gosh. Whoa. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, that's just like... I did not expect that. Wow. And Bad Crumble, thank you so... Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's... Holy moly. In support of your California trip or additional memorabilia. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, Holy moly. Yeah, that amount... Gosh, I'd love to use that to, like, get something when I go to California, but I won't see that money until, what's it right now, February? I won't see that money till March, because that's on this channel, and so I don't get paid till the next month after it's, so, yeah. But maybe I can borrow money from somebody I know and pay them back with the money you guys just donated. I wonder if I can do that. Because they can see that you guys donated money to me. So, because I'd love to get something. I'd love to, like, maybe, like, because I was going to eat lunch on the ship, right? So I was going to have, like, a burger or something. But now I might be able to have something a bit nicer than just a burger. So, maybe, like, I don't know, a steak or something. But, yeah. That is so... Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much. I can't even believe all the people that donated today. I mean, holy moly. Bad Crumble says, give us your Venmo. It's in the description below. I think you'll see a thing for the Venmo. But you can find me on Venmo at Alex A. Historian. So not Alex the Historian, but Alex A Historian on Venmo, and you'll see my logo on it. So that's my Venmo if you want to give me something on Venmo. But yeah, the money you donated today, everybody, that I will see in the start of March, I think. Or sometime in the middle of March, because I get paid the next month from the previous month. So now it's February, I won't get the February money till March. So, but yeah, thank you so much. Daniel says the Eggs Benedict was great on the Queen Mary. You know, I heard the same thing. Maybe I'll get the Eggs Benedict, because I will be there in the morning, and I'm going to be very hungry. An Age Forgotten says, see the great stuff going on with the RMS Queen Mary. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm going to be checking up on all of it. I'm doing great, by the way. Let me also go back and reread some, because I know I skipped some messages here. Let's see. Okay, 65. Ed Kaufman says, I can watch the Sunderland Reel 1 and 2 forever. Oh, you already know the clips. That's funny. I am 65 from New York, but Portland, Oregon now, close to you. Well, I do live about 20 minutes outside of downtown. I don't like to give specifics because I don't know who's going to come looking for me. But yeah, I do live about 20 minutes outside of downtown. I don't even live in the city. I live outside the city. But I still live in the region, if that makes sense. Tim says, followed you on Facebook. Thank you so much. You know, we also have RMSQM Wiki on Facebook as well. That's the name of our website for all the information that is Queen Mary related, all the details and everything. Like if you want to learn anything about the Queen Mary, we've probably at least got part of it on there on the website so far, and the website's still growing all the time. And so we got a Facebook page linked for the RMSQM Wiki, and there we got people who post all kinds of cool fun facts about the Queen Mary and information and stuff there. So you guys can actually make posts on that Facebook page, and I believe that's also linked below in this video, in the description. Arrow says, it would be insanely cool if someone somehow got access to the cargo holds and did a thorough analysis of all the artifacts stored down there. Wow. Let me think. Well, because, yeah, you're right. There is a lot of artifacts down there. And, I mean, thousands of pieces. I mean, a lot of the stuff that the Queen Mary once had was sold in the first 10 or so years after the Queen Mary opened as a hotel. But there's still a lot of stuff that remains behind that needs restoration. And they've even got stuff like original carpets, original curtains and stuff like that. Just amazing stuff. Original furniture. They got lots of great stuff in there. And yeah, it needs a proper facility. You know, there's a historian, Dr. Margarita Jarabek, who has outlined a restoration plan for the Queen Mary, and the management at Queen Mary has been following it. You know, they use it as a guideline for how to maintain restoration of the ship and stuff. But one of the things that she mentioned was they should build a facility outside the ship that is like temperature controlled, humidity controlled, where they can properly maintain all the artifacts and keep them. And I think that'd be really cool to have someday. If they got some kind of huge donation or something to build that, I think that'd be really cool. Bad Crumble says, hi, just FYI, the last elevator with a full name, licensed elevator operator on the West Coast, is in Los Angeles at the Baron Hatz building. Oh, interesting. Dyslexic Batdom says, that's how they get you and stamp out all the small business. I think he's talking about the ADA compliance thing. Kat says, yesterday I got an ad on Instagram showing Queen Mary's hidden invite-only bar that looked like a space of former seance room around baggage area B deck. Oh. Invite only bar. I haven't heard of that. I'll have to look that up and see what they're advertising. But I do know that they're using the former tea room up on Sun Deck for something. There was people in there recently cleaning it, vacuuming and all that. And I'm like, well, they're not using that room. So I wonder what. I think they're going to use it soon for something. So maybe they're using the tea room up on Sun Deck. Isai Juarez says, do you think adding some ADA might affect how they would rebuild the structures around the ship? Yes. Anything they build on the ship from this point on would have to be ADA compliant. So if they built something on the ship right now, it would need to be ADA compliant. Now, thankfully, a great deal of the ship is already ADA compliant because they have those elevator towers outside the ship that give you access to most of the levels. And then from there, you have the elevators on the ship that can access other levels that you can't get from the elevator tower. So, but, like, I'd say one of the biggest areas that you just cannot access is the Sun Deck Promenade. If you're in a wheelchair, there's no way. There's no way you can get to the Sun Deck Promenade unless someone carries you up the stairs and someone else carries your wheelchair up the stairs. So that's really the only way. But, yeah. But they can walk around the promenade itself on Promenade Deck. Not walk around, I guess. Wheel around. What am I saying? So let's see. Joplin says Peter and Bad Crumble are real ones. Yes. They're so very generous. I mean, I've met so many amazing people on this channel. That's another one of the reasons why I love what I do, is because I meet so many fantastic people on this channel. I mean, it's not like anything I've ever seen before. There's just so many people who, we love to talk about ships, we love to talk about the Queen Mary, and we love to talk about historic places and things. And it's like something we can all connect with, because, even where I live, I don't know that many people. I have a friend that comes by and watches movies once in a while, so I'm really, it's really cool when he comes over, so. But other than that, I don't get to talk to too many people aside from my father or my sister, so, yeah, it's really nice to be able to talk to people. Let's see. Kat says fish and chips. I would love some good fish and chips. That would be amazing. Bad Crumble says, when you are here, we will take you to Queen Mary Champagne Brunch. Yeah, I wouldn't be there on a Sunday, though. Ron says tea in the Queen's dining room. Tea in the Queen's dining room. What is the Queen's dining room? So I'm trying to think, because the Queen Mary Management has all these weird names for all those rooms. Some of them are like Queen Salon, some of them are the Grand Salon, and I can't keep up with all of it. Britannia Salon. And those aren't even the original names of those spaces, so it's like difficult because I don't remember them all. Chris says, hey Alex, does RMS Queen Mary Museum sell old decking of RMS Queen Mary like they do for Battleship New Jersey? Museum sells its old teak decking to make more money. The Queen Mary used to, but the thing is that there is no longer any areas of original teak that is being cut up. So, like for instance, when they redid the wraparound of Sun Deck recently, where they completely ripped all that up and then installed all new decks, that was not original teak. That was teak installed in like 1994 or something like that. So it wasn't even original to the ship. So, and that teak was so badly rotten, like it had like, just, I don't know, like probably some kind of disease or something like that affects wood or whatever. I don't think they'd want to sell that, because you don't want to sell diseased wood, because it could spread to your garden or something, you know, like you never know what it'll spread to the beams in your house. So they don't want to sell something that's like rotten. But the other thing too is that they're not cutting up any original teak around the ship. They're saving as much of the original as possible. Even on what was it? There was parts of Promenade Deck where they had to replace like a plank or two of teak, but instead of like just replacing all of Promenade Deck, they kept as much as possible, which was pretty much like 90% of it or something like that. 95% of it is all original. What am I was trying to make a point. I don't remember what it is. Oh, right. Okay. I know. Okay. No, I know the point I was going to make. The forward promenade that wraps around the observation bar, that is original teak decking on the outside of the ship. And some of it was so rotten that, like, it just, you know, it looked like it could crumble. But what they did was they flipped it over. So if there was pieces like that, they would just flip it over and use the other side. So they're doing what they can to keep as much of the original teak on the ship as possible. That's why they won't cut it up. Is because they're trying to save as much of the original teak on the ship as possible. But I would say like a good 60% of the teak on the ship right now is all from like the 1990s. I don't think it's at all original, so... James says, hi from Mexico City. Hello, James. Air Eero says, when I watch Queen Mary's... Oh, that's funny because I actually just talked about that earlier in this video, actually. So Air Eero says, I watched Queen Mary's Last Great Cruise. I remember seeing those red London double-decker buses on deck. Do you know what happened to them? So Air Eero, if you're watching... so I already mentioned this at the beginning of the live stream, but there is one left. One of those buses still remains, and it's owned by QMI Restore the Queen. They have, they're in talks right now with both Queen Mary Management and the city of Long Beach to restore their double-decker bus and use it once more as a shuttle to take people from the Queen Mary to downtown and from downtown to the Queen Mary. So it's actually a really cool project. You can donate on you can donate money to QMI Restore the Queen. For all their various restoration projects. They're responsible for funding the restoration of Unicorns in Battle, which is in the main lounge on the promenade deck. Right now it's got scaffolding around it because they're restoring it. So you can donate to that. You can donate to, you know, all their causes. And one of those things is restoring the double-decker bus. And the city of Long Beach wants to use its... its public transit sector to help restore that bus because they have all the tools and stuff necessary to do it. So they're kind of in talks right now for doing that. But yeah, that bus will be coming back to the Queen Mary. Lachlan says you have to try Australian fish and chips with the obligatory chicken salt. The recipe has been a secret for decades. That's awesome. Yeah, I love fish and chips. I'd love to try that. Let's see. Oh, Hardly Human says, by the way, this is Bad Crumble FX. We just switched our channel name back to our old one. Hardly Human. Sorry for confusing anyone. Oh, okay. I was a bit confused, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, there's someone who, like a friend of mine who I really want to see again, and I haven't told them that I'm coming. So I'm trying to be as secretive as possible because they could be watching the live stream right now, and I don't want to ruin the surprise. But yeah. So if I end up, like, putting this live stream in private after it's done. That's probably wise, because I don't want them to go back and watch it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want them to see it and be like, oh, and then the surprise is ruined. But I'll probably, like, put this back public afterwards. So, after I visit. But yeah. Alright. I do have to get going, because I've been on here for almost 3 hours. I was like, 4 hours? That can't be. Let's see. First class lounge and first class dining room are 2 different rooms. Air Eero says, I wonder if they would ever redo the Queen Mary's funnels. I heard that they are slightly shorter than the originals, and they don't have the rivet detail to cut costs at the time. You know, people do say that they are slightly shorter from the originals, but I have never found any evidence that says that that is true. I haven't found it. You know, and I've even looked at photographs for reference of the Queen Mary, and you really can't see a difference in height. Yeah, they are missing the rivet details. I don't know if that was necessarily to cut costs. I'm sure it does cut costs, but I think mostly it was just because it was like a detail that they were like, no one's going to notice, you know, might as well just, you know, because welding was just a much cheaper process and much faster. So I guess it does cut costs, yeah. So I guess you could say that's a cost-cutting thing. But as for the height of the funnels, I have never found any information that confirms that. It's just something people say. People say that the funnels are 7 feet shorter than the originals, but like I said, I've never found any evidence towards that. They look just the same. So, I don't know. It's really weird. Air Arrow says, do you also think it's necessary to reinstall the light towers, which you call them, in the first class dining room? I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it would be nice. Believe me, like, yeah, it would be really nice, but I don't think it's particularly necessary. But it would be nice. Yeah. If I walked in there one day and those I believe they're called torchère lamps. Not torture, but torchère, I can't pronounce it. But if they were installed, I'd be like, oh, that's a really cool surprise. You know, I'm really glad they did that, you know. But I wouldn't, it's not on my list of things that I hope that they immediately do, you know. Anyway, folks, I think I'm going to end this live stream now. I've been on here for almost 3 hours, and I'm tired. But I'm going to finish this up after the live stream, because I love these cookies, and not cookies, but biscuits. Love these things. And then, yeah. I can't think of anything else to say. My brain is now starting to get real tired. But, Izai Juarez says, thank you for an awesome live, Alex. Well, thank you guys for showing up, and thank you guys, everybody who donated and stuff. Thanks so much. I do have a Venmo if you guys want to donate directly. That will help me this month if you donate on Venmo or something. And the Venmo is, again, at Alex A. Historian. So, thank you guys so much. Be sure to check out RMSQM Wiki if you have any questions about the Queen Mary or its current condition. That's an easy website to find, and the link is in the description below. Yeah, I'll see when I can do one of these tea times as soon as I can, okay? Anyway, guys, thank you all so much, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.